Hello and welcome to this episode of the Wussows podcast. I'm Terry.
I'm Jason.
This month we have Linda LeGarde Grover,
Ellie Shoenfeld,
and Tina Higgins Wussow, all writers. Because normally we have, it feels like a lot more musicians, songwriters, but this time word writers.
Sometimes we have chocolatiers, but this time we're really inviting a bunch of smart people.
Yeah, we're inviting people who are much smarter than ourselves. And Jason and I are going to be out of our league, and that's okay. Just enjoy people who are much smarter than us talking about things things I couldn't even possibly fathom.
Like spelling.
Like spelling and words with more than one syllable. So jealous.
Actually being able to read what
reading.
you write down
Oh.
and then go back over and over and over again and make a book, or become the poet laureate, or even get rejected 30 times in a month from
I
admissions.
think if there's anything I want to talk about, that's a big thing, is how do you get rejected over and over again. You just go, and I'm just going to keep writing. Anyway, we'll get into it.
That was one of these. I just thought, you're right. And I have a bad poem.
Yeah. Pressure's off.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't,
I second that, but also so are short stories.
with short stories.
Most short stories by early writers because they're so hard.
Yeah.
They're so hard to pull off that most of them are bad. But there's always redeeming elements in there somewhere.
Oh, you can use them for something somewhere.
Yeah.
I never throw stuff away.
No.
I throw it away. I burn it.
Burn it.
Burn it.
I
Journal
think,
burning party.
Do you keep a journal?
I've tried to, but I'm not good at it. No, I would like to.
Do you?
I would like
Keep a
to
journal?
be a person. who
not
kept a
officially.
journal.
But
Yeah.
there's a
did for
lot
like
of
6
notebooks
months.
laying
I
around.
would write in
my
it once a
life.
week.
Really?
Yeah, I said once a week I needed to fill a page, and sometimes it would just be
So
like
you are writing.
Sometimes, but I stopped doing that. But yeah, it would be
about
like
journaling.
sometimes the writing would literally be like, I hate this, I want to be done, and I'm only a quarter of the way down the page, blah 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 blah, and then a bunch of swear words, and then eventually I think of something I'm thinking about, and I'll
Well,
start
that's
just
pretty good.
going
One
from there.
sentence out of that is pretty good.
It's pretty
I
good.
mean, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a habit actually. I do want to get back into. It was nice to have the habit once a week of doing that.
They say that it's good to have the habit of
Yeah.
writing. Do
Yeah.
you feel that's true?
Well,
Do you have a habit of writing?
no.
We're not.
No.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
That makes
Kate
me feel a
Basham-
lot better too.
Kate Basham said you should try to write something every day.
Something.
Yeah, I just watched a video with Stephen King saying he writes 6 pages a day, religiously, 6 pages.
And then he stops at 6 pages?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
just finished I don't read Stephen King books, but I saw one at Barnes & Noble for 30% off and bought it, and it was really good. It's
pretty
new.
He
It's-
lives up to all the hype.
It's it's not. He's an older writer now, so he's the woman who's carrying this story forth is in her mid-50s, and she has a kind of like an investigation agency or something called Finders Keepers. It's a cool name. So anyway, this isn't really a supernatural book, but there are always supernatural things going on anyway. I mean, everywhere. So he just puts them in his books.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I've been doing that too because I thought, well,
It's there for the taking.
yeah. I mean,
And
or
it's
so much quieter than musicians.
Did you just turn us up?
I might have to do it later. We'll see.
Yeah.
How often do you find yourself stealing from life or from other people, or does the thought of stealing come up ever when you're writing?
Like you're trying to write fiction and it's actually secretly true, kind of thing.
Or kind of like, oh, I really like what Stephen King's doing. I'm just gonna do that too.
that I actually, if I really am writing something, I don't read other people's stuff because I don't want to be copying them.
Right. Okay.
I would feel so bad. I really like Mary Gordon and Amy Tan, two of my very favorite writers. And if I wrote something that Amy Tan had already written, I would feel really bad.
especially if you made a lot of money out of it.
Yeah.
Well, then you get caught.
She might feel really bad. We've never met, but we might.
You'd be like, I'm in Florida.
Hey, that might be a good way to meet Amy Tan.
Yeah, I've always wanted to.
I'll meet you in court. Yeah.
Right. Maybe you can have lunch afterwards. It'd be fun. I've stolen bits of overheard conversation, usually misheard conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think everything's stolen, really, in
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Well.
you're right. It is.
I once saw a sign at UMD that I thought said Dr. Stupid Greg, but it was not his name. And I just think about that sometimes, speaking of misreading things.
Dr. Stupid Greg.
Yeah. And I had to do a double take because I wasn't sure if it said that or not. So.
See,
I
that's
love
like
that
in
there's
those.
cartoon teachers at UMD.
Or so I
Yeah,
thought.
Stupid
And
Greg.
and I did actually draw him afterwards, whoever I thought Stupid Greg was.
Oh my gosh, see? But you were probably seeing the real thing, just like in a Stephen King book.
Oh.
And then it
Yeah.
morphed into
And then it
what
was-
you have to
it was
live with.
actually like
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Sherman or something.
Just be
Yeah.
glad your ankles aren't broken.
God. I watched Misery for the first time in
Misery,
a
yeah.
class.
Oh,
in
yeah,
school,
Misery.
not a class. It was like it wasn't like homeroom, but it was sort of like serve the place of a homeroom where you just kind of would go for like half an hour, but it was in the middle of the day, and so yeah, in the middle of the day, in a bright classroom, watching this guy get hobbled. That was it was quite a lot.
I hated that. I love that movie, and I hate horror, and that movie still haunts me. I'm sure if I watched a book, it would not be the same as watching that scene.
Oh, you're right.
It'd be better.
It'd be
See,
better
that's the thing,
reading
yeah.
it.
Better?
It would probably be better, but also in some ways worse. Because he does just get into your
Yeah.
brain. I think that's something I like about the written word and for me specifically comic books in the ways that it does put thoughts almost into your head and allows and kind of forces you to make connections and decisions. And I guess the better the writer, the more manipulative or maybe that's not the right word, but the more they're able to pull those strings, I suppose.
Yeah.
Or organize them.
Or,
braid,
yeah,
braid
right.
them into something.
Yeah,
yeah.
Try to catch the loose ends.
Yeah.
Some of them never are caught, are they?
No,
Yeah.
some of them wander away.
Maybe this is kind of a weird question, but how do you know when they've wandered away, and how do you personally recognize those loose threads that you're missing out on? Do you think?
In a poem, when writing,
I mean,
or just in my
I
life.
don't know. Well, whatever feels more relevant to you, I don't know.
Only my
How does your
therapist can
garden grow?
help answer that. But yeah, well, I mean, I don't usually have too much of an idea of where I'm going when I start the poem, so I don't really know what's going to be a loose end or what's not. I guess that's what comes to me when I'm thinking of loose ends. So sometimes those are, better than whatever I kind of started off with. But I don't know. Do you guys know what you're going to write about when you start?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Or I
Yeah.
think, I'll have an image of someone walking across the street or something, and then I'll just follow that person for a while, and
Right.
then they tell me the story eventually.
Yeah.
Usually it takes a very long time for them to give it up.
Yeah.
Or they give me a fake story. I'm like, that's not
Fake
the
story.
story. And then I have to come
Yeah.
back again and wait and talk to someone else about it.
Well, a loose end doesn't mean that it's completely lost. It's almost like it's still tethered to the idea. And so, it may not be used this time, but it's something that could be put aside for some other time. So,
Yep.
I've told students, I've advised them, don't throw your stuff away, even if you think it's bad, and maybe it is bad, but don't throw it, and you can use it some other time maybe. And I got some good advice on doing research papers, which was your first paragraph, go ahead and you'll probably throw that away, and then you're ready to start your first paragraph. And students think
Yes.
that their stuff is throwing something away it's just like cutting off a finger or something,
Yeah.
and they feel so bad about it. So I tell them, you don't have to. You're just saving it for another time.
Yeah.
Like some people save their gum somewhere. And
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really funny because I like to throw everything away that I hate and literally burn it, but that's just me. But when I'm recording someone, every time the first take, they're like, it's terrible, throw it away. I never do. I save them. Save. 10 takes. What's the best take? The first take. I can't listen to my own advice, and that's normal, but I still like to burn my own journals, but
I have to disagree with that because we have drawers and drawers and drawers full of your old journals.
well, I will burn them.
Someday.
I'll burn them when we bring them to the shack. If I find one, I'll burn it.
Do you reread them?
No.
No. Okay. I was just wondering. I don't know if I
I've
could.
never
I cannot read
Possible.
them. I'm like, why?
I think you burn them in your head. But
I burn them in my head, and I leave them in piles. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, there's drawers that never get opened. That's
No.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, only when I'm looking for stamps or an envelope or something, and I'm like, "What is this heavy drawer?" And I go to pull it open, and it's all notebooks.
All notebooks.
And I close it up.
I understand. I have just piles
I
and
need
piles
to
of
burn
folders
them.
of paper.
I forgot to
Need
burn
to-
those.
Yeah.
I forget to burn journals. I mean, that's a different story.
We're having a bonfire tomorrow. You can bring some journals if you want. So I had that problem when I was a younger writer. I was afraid that I was. They say you have to kill your babies,
Yeah, I've
And
heard
I-
that
and I-
phrase. Mhm.
and I was like, oh well, no, because the sentence is so beautiful, and so I started cutting the stuff that had to be cut out of that story, and I made a new file, and I
I've
named
done
it
that.
something. I don't remember what I named it, but it became full of. It was very long with all these cut parts, But then eventually, I got to the point where I could just let them go, because I never opened that file, and I never dug through that file and found anything. And I thought if I ever did, it would end up in a poem, maybe a poem. I don't know. I just felt like I haven't deleted the file. It exists, but I haven't gone back to it. I just got better at releasing these things, and I think it made my writing stronger, because I trust that something else will come to me, or that will come back when I need it.
Mhm.
I just trust in the process more than I did when I was younger. I was afraid.
Speaking of the process, you mentioned a minute ago that you all mentioned that you don't start with necessarily like an idea. Well, I don't know. Was it an idea? Is that fair, or is it just like a direction?
A direction.
So you
I
have
mean, that's for
Yeah.
me.
Well,
It's
yeah.
an
Yeah.
image or a line or something.
so there's just, is it so there's just something that prompts the process, the process.
Yes.
And the way and then what?
Well, then something happens.
Yeah. And
Right.
sometimes
Well-
it's really great, and sometimes it's not.
Well, right,
It's very
yeah.
painful.
I wouldn't be poet laureate if it wasn't amazing.
No, but it's fun usually. I mean,
It is
it's
fun.
or interesting, or it's kind of if it's
Adventure.
that flow thing happens, then it feels like I don't know. Sometimes I write something and when it's really good, when the process is really good, when it feels good, I think, oh, this is the best thing I've ever written.
It is like a drug.
And then-
huh? It's like
Yes, and then a week later, I look at it and I think, oh, well, thank God I didn't show that to anybody.
What was
That's
I-
really
what was
bad.
I doing?
Horrible. This I could keep. The line is okay, but
that's why you want to burn it later.
but it's a great feeling. Those little moments where I think, oh, that's the best thing I've ever written.
Yeah. If it's
Oh, yeah.
not fun, I just don't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Oh,
I love
sign me
that.
up for that.
Yeah.
If it's not fun,
Okay,
I
so
just don't want to
so
do it.
I gotta
That's
dig into
right.
this a little bit. So
Yeah.
the whole process from start to finish has to be fun, or are there some parts that are kind of not so fun, but you do them anyway
Well, fun,
once you get there?
fun isn't necessarily that I'm, rolling on the floor laughing. That isn't it at all.
I
But
really like that image of you. Though.
just, this is great because
Carrie will make a cartoon of that.
because a lot of what I write about is based on research that really was very difficult to do, and so the writing can be very difficult to do. But there is a satisfaction, I think, in feeling that I'm doing something properly, and so that's what I mean by fun. But it's not like, who is it who said writing is easy? All you do is sit there and bleed all over the keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who said that. It wasn't me.
Yeah, no.
I think I've heard that quote too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that isn't
Very
it
durable
either.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people who say, "Oh, that must be really cathartic." And I go, "No, there's no such thing." I hate to spread wisdom that isn't positive. But if I am really not really enjoying it, I can't see the point in doing it. What kind of writing would come out of it?
That's
If your heart's not in
interesting.
it.
Not spreading wisdom that's not positive. I mean, that's interesting because there's a lot of wisdom that's not positive.
I think what's also interesting is we talked about upstairs. We're kind of joking about how much fun writing always is, and how it's never a terrible process of kind of what you're saying of just looking at a blank page and just going, oh my god.
That would be terrible. It's time
yeah.
to go do something else then.
So that's a good advice. That's what I don't tend to do. I tend to just stare until I'm so frustrated that I just abandon whatever I'm doing, which is not helpful because it leads to a lot of things not getting done.
Yeah, I don't say goodbye to the piece. I just say, see ya or something.
See you later.
See you around,
Time
kid.
out.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. I probably have both, because sometimes I have to rewrite. I have to do rewrites quite a bit. Some people can just sort of have their first draft be pretty fantastic, and so sometimes when the first flush of writing is usually has to be pretty fun, or I'm going to leave. But then when I have to try to fix it up a little, sometimes that isn't fun very much. I mean, it's interesting though, and I guess it depends how we define fun.
Maybe stimulating.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I was gonna
stimulating,
say,
yeah.
engaging.
It's
Yeah.
like, well, what could I do here? And I guess I don't ever get too stressed out because, again, I'll go do something else too. It's like, well,
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Do you revise a lot, Tina?
Yeah,
Do you? Yeah, I revise all the time.
I do, and I like it. I didn't
enjoy
like
it.
it when
Yeah.
I was a younger writer, and I had some advice from a professor who I adore, and I adore her work, and this is how she operates. And I think it was such an interesting thing for me to learn that everybody finds their way, and I had to find my way, but I didn't have my way at the time. So she had a certain process, and the process was start from a blank page, all over. Just put it away and don't look at it, and then start a blank page. And so that caused such anxiety in me for so many years, and I thought, this is horrible, this is hell, I don't know why I do this, I want to never do this again. And then I sit down and I do it because I really want to be a writer, but this is so awful, I don't know why I do this. And then, but it worked, because when I was working with her, I wrote some of my best stuff by doing this process. So she wasn't wrong, but I found out for me it doesn't have to be that painful. So now I've talked to some writer friends, and I've kind of come up with my own system, and I love my system, and I love revising. I love looking back at. So what I do now is I have my first draft, and then I copy and paste it into or I save it as a new document, and that's draft 2. Sometimes the first draft is draft 2 because I write it by hand first, and then I type it, and the typed version is draft 2. But I kind of hate typing, so I stopped doing that. But anyway, and then I just keep coming back to it. But I sit in my bed with my pets and my French press, and I read the story in a new saved document, and then I fix it up according to what my brain says and my heart says that day. Then I put it aside and go about my life until I'm ready to come back, and then it's draft 3, and I do that until about draft 6, and then when I feel like it's as good as I can make it and as good as I can see, then I give it to a very close friend whose opinion I trust deeply, and then we talk about it for a little while, and then I bring it back home and I do it again. And it's just so calm, and it doesn't hurt anymore. It hurt so much before that I just didn't even know how I was going to continue on for the rest of my life like this. But now I really look forward to getting the first draft done so that I can revise. And I try to tell my students that too, that revision can be really fun, and they just look at me like I'm a lunatic. But I think it's a blast.
it takes the pressure off that first draft too, because I
Right.
think a lot of times people, I sometimes people talk about, they try to edit as they go. I'm like, oh, yeah.
We were at something. We were at something once, Ellie, where you you said something about the poem when it's on a page or in a book. Who wouldn't like your poem in a book? That it isn't actually finished then either.
Yeah.
If you don't like your poem in a book,
No, it's just never finished.
Yeah.
So
Isn't-
yeah. So whatever is on the page there. I mean, I have a new book out, and it is just continuing its own life, that I'm the only one who sees it. Because
Yeah.
revising it's constant, and I think that the piece itself then has its own existence.
that makes
its
so
own
much
life.
sense. It's like, I don't write books, but you make a record, you mix it, you master it, and now it's out, and you immediately already, it's not good enough. This could all be redone, but it's already out, so you just like, I guess we'll just start a new thing because this is already done apparently.
Well,
It's like you have to finish something at some point and then move on to the next thing, but it's like it really never is totally done, but you have to say, this is where we're at. and
Here it
it's
is.
done.
Here it is in print here.
Yep.
But it still continues its own existence. I might not be able to do anything about it, but I don't know, it kind of gets away from me. I don't really control it, I guess. It has
It's a
its own...
string theory thing, and in other universes, it's
Oh, there
being
you go.
adapted.
That's right.
And
It is. It
it's
is. It is
like,
continuing.
there's so many versions,
Yeah.
and
We can't see it.
point
all those-
7, point 8, point 9.
All those characters are real and they're
Yeah.
living somewhere.
And so as they're doing these things, I kind of picture it as like, I call it to myself, adding like curly cues to things when I'm revising.
Oh.
And, just kind of do,
Yeah. I like that. I like that image quite a lot. I'm going to think about that next time I'm revising. Curly Q. This needs a curly Q as
Just
opposed to cross out.
Just to fancy it up a little bit, right?
fancy it up.
Yeah.
But
Fancy
one
it up.
thing I did to
Fancy it up.
unfancy things quite a while ago is I looked at a page once that I had typed and printed, and all of a sudden all I could see were commas. And they were just like hangnails all over the page.
yes.
And I just thought, I am not going to be bound by the comma anymore.
The commas.
Why am I putting these in here? Because I learned to do this in school. What is it? Whenever you take a breath or have your thought change, which is constantly.
Right, constantly, yes. Yes, commas are a big question.
That's how I,
commas. I've spent a lot of time in my life thinking about the
Yeah,
comma.
especially in poetry.
Yeah,
Especially in
do I need to
poetry.
have another comma?
Right.
Or conversely, well, why can't I have a comma here? I don't want it to be a line break, and I don't want to put another word, and I want it to be a pause, but it
That's
still
probably why I
seems
put them
wrong, but-
everywhere, just because I don't know, and I'm like, let's just
Yeah.
put some commas, because I
well,
mean,
that's what you learned in school, right?
well, I
Yeah.
didn't learn much in English.
Well,
I
I
mean,
learned
I was
that.
like a D
Yeah.
in English, so it's like I just put commas everywhere, just in case.
He still does.
Yeah.
I feel similarly about quotation marks. I would rather organize the page so it's clear who's talking and that someone's talking. But they always look really messy to me, and they're distracting. And I never thought of it that way. And I don't. It's not true of every story though. Some stories quotation marks can be there, and some stories they really bother me. And I was at a reading. Paul Auster did a reading in St. Paul years ago, and I met him, and I was so excited to meet him. I was just like starstruck and super nervous. And he had a book out that didn't use any quotation marks, and I said, why didn't you use quotation marks? And that was my big deep question for him. And he said, because it was too busy and it took away from the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of it that way. And then suddenly it must have got in my head somewhere, because now 10, 20 years later, a lot of years later, I suddenly am disturbed by them.
Oh.
Oh,
In a new
If you
way.
don't like them, just know.
Yeah.
The semicolon is really an elegant thing, isn't it?
I like
I
it
love
too.
those things.
You know what? I feel kind of pretentious when I use it, though.
I just feel like I am grabbing that elegance, that I may not be an elegant person, but
Oh, I think
by
you
God,
are.
I can do this. I just
I like the semicolon, but sometimes I use dashes.
Well,
I was
Oh,
just
I
thinking
love
about
And
that.
I
That's what I
think,
was
and,
thinking.
ooh,
I
I
love
don't know,
dashes.
and
I
I
use them
think
kind of
sometimes, well,
interchangeably.
why? Yeah, so I don't know.
I think there is a difference.
I'm sure there is. Yeah,
think
but I use
kinda
them
context-based.
randomly. I mean,
Well, it's a subjective
they-
difference.
Yeah, a subject. They can
Yeah, just when it
in the same
feels
spots.
better.
It goes by how it
Exactly.
feels.
Yeah.
Which
Like-
one fits into the
Well-
to the cozy little look of
Well,
the day?
But I think this
It's
is
a fashion statement.
what's interesting about this though is it's like even though specifically for writers and poets you're talking about colons and semicolons and things, but I mean this kind of attention to these minor little details is true of every art form. I mean every artist in their
Minor
medium
little
does that.
details, eh?
Whatever. I mean, and even this kind of goes back to Jason, what we were talking about before when you were talking about directors and stuff. And a director of a movie, they know that story in and out. So anytime a question comes up on set, they know the story so well that they can answer it based on whatever context needs to be had there.
They get to decide.
Yeah.
They do.
It's a semicolon, obviously.
Yeah, because that
Obviously.
feels better. It goes with the story better. You just kind of know that things will be better if I just put that
A
semicolon.
dash
there.
will
if
not
I
work
just,
today.
If
No.
that flower cannot be in the back of this scene, it has to go over there. Otherwise, it's just all
Maybe
wrong.
if it was upside down,
Yeah, right. Maybe if I
Hanging
knocked it
from the
over.
ceiling,
Yeah. You
hidden
never,
in the background.
for
Yeah.
some reason, that makes all the difference in the world.
Well, punctuation is a useful thing, I think. But I think
yeah.
that, well, here's
Get
me,
back to
in my
English.
opinion. But I think the appearance of the poem on the page and I mean, that really is the poet's voice, how the poet has communicated that, the way it is laid out on the page like that.
That's so interesting, too, because I'm not a reader of poetry. I'm a listener. So I never read poetry, but I have listened to so much poetry. So these things mean nothing to me. I'm a book on tape person. I'm a total audio person. I don't read poetry, but you were talking about Poetry Harbor and all these old things, and I've been listening to poetry since I was like super little. All these things really, as I left high school failing English, not having punctuation, I just I'm out and I don't have to worry about it again, and I haven't actually.
Yeah, you've had a good life without this. Yeah,
I mean
it's possible to do to have
but it's interesting. It's like this means a lot to you guys, but to me it's like what sounds the same to
Just
me.
a bunch of scribbles on a page.
Yeah, it's like however you need to phrase it and get people interested in the cool words you're using. It's all about the words in the story is what I'm interested in.
And I really like following along when a poet is reading their own work. And then I can see the real spirit of how it's on the page and what the poet is thinking of. That's one of my favorite things to do. So when I'm at a poetry reading and they've got a book, I mean, I'm just thumbing through and you know, I hope my lips aren't moving. They might be, you know.
Now, if you were watching somebody in the audience doing that same thing, and they were, mouthing along, how do you think you'd feel about that? Do you think you'd like it, or do you think you'd be kind of uncomfortable?
Oh, I think that we must be friends from ages back.
Ooh, the Taylor Swift of poets.
Well, I think that it shows that there's extra attention given. You're taking it in multiple ways. You're trying to experience the entire thing.
I think
if
I'd
you
be
can.
flattered.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose you can't really look at their face as much, because what if you got to one point and they're kind of like sticking their tongue out at it or something, or sprinkling their nose,
or getting their pencil and doing a little editing.
Tina does the writer's salon and new poets, published authors, everyone who comes out. It's amazing to listen to that and see it live, and that's like the world I live in, seeing things live and listening to it, and that's the difference. For me, just I'm losing it here, but
how important do you guys find reading poetry? Because I think that's kind of interesting, because I think I've probably also heard more poetry than I've read. But I think there is something to be said about hearing the poet themselves and hearing the words and hearing that rhythm. But there's also seeing that rhythm and seeing almost. Well, I've always kind of thought of poetry as like drawing with words, because of the way you can kind of make not necessarily an image, but the design of the page in the poem is kind of considered. Whether you however you indent the lines in them. I remember reading one book in school once, where all the pages were supposed to look like piano keys. And that was the first time I'd ever seen that as just like that's when I made those kind of connections about poetry and imagery.
Yeah. Well, both of them are wonderful. I mean, to hear poetry is, it's an oral tradition and all of that. But I read more poetry than I hear, I think, because I don't go anywhere.
And you like to read, though. That's the other thing. You like to read.
I like to read.
Thinking about your own work and how you would prefer it to be experienced. Do you think it is best experienced read or heard? Or does it depend?
As a fan of all three of you guys, I think you're all so fabulous, and I think that's why you're here, because when all three of you read your poems, I literally cry.
Oh, good.
And I feel
that is
it.
The goal.
And it's so emotional and it's so beautiful. The imagery is so deep. When you stop out for a show, a homegrown poetry showcase, a book signing, it melts my heart. All three of you, every time. I've never been ever disappointed. It's always, it's emotional.
Oh, it's emotional to read it too, but I don't really cry a whole lot, but I would if I could.
I would if I could.
Going, the writer's salon at Wussow's, that's watching people who come there with their stuff, and some people are really experienced poets who've done a lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of people that is the very first thing that they've ever done. And they come there and, and some have it on their phone, so they're reading it off their phone, or somebody else has a little piece of paper or a whole notebook and they're looking for it. And it just, it's such an opportunity for people to be able to share and do it that way. I've said many times that is the best audience you're ever going to have for your stuff, because everybody in that room is there to support either poetry, that poem, that person. It's just the most wonderful experience, and I'm a person who always needs practice reading, and that's a really good place to read, because well, for one thing, you can't see because it's light. The light's in your eyes, which is good.
That's
a good thing.
It's great.
But also, there's, and when you walk back to sitting down, there are always people who say, "Oh, that was good," and stuff like that. And, it's just so encouraging. I've appreciated Wussow so much for many things.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
It was a little, I think it just kind of came out of my mouth one day many years ago. I don't know. I said something about a open mic. He said, "Now you're talking." And he just kind of started doing that. And I don't know how long it's been even going on. Probably up almost 10 years.
I don't know either.
Probably.
My first time coming to Wussow's was you were reading one night. I came with my dad, and that was I think I was in high school. I don't think it would have been middle school. But I mean, I'm 25 now, so I don't know what the ages would be. But so it's definitely been a minute. I can say that much.
And it's been so fun to watch people come, and so by the time we got up to COVID, it was kind of a sold out, and we don't obviously have a cover charge, but like it would just be full. I didn't have to try. It would just be full. And then we had to close for 14 months for COVID. And when we reopened, I thought I would just post it on Facebook and invite people back in and they would all come. And that's not what happened. And it was kind of painful the first 6 months or so coming back up to get people to come out and try again. And I think it was partially, there was a fear of going out and doing things. And then there was the comfort of being so used to being at home. But also of just not, it takes a lot of, it takes something for writers to be able to be around other writers and talk about it and share their work, right? It's kind of a deep, I don't know, it takes some bravery to do that. And so when you got all that stacked against you in terms of being isolated for that long and then trying to break through that again is really hard. But now we're pretty much back up and running at almost full capacity of what it used to be, and it's really fun to watch.
Well, good job at not abandoning ship, just sticking with it.
There was one night where it was just me and Julie Gard going back and forth, and one person in the audience listening, and we did it anyway.
And they applauded.
It was great, and the baristas were excited. I mean, it was something else.
So
I should invite Julie back.
Segue to that.
Yeah.
As you're trying to get your work out there, how many rejections? What's your number one rejections in a month? What's your number one rejection month of your life?
I don't really know, because I'm kind of a lazy submitter, so I go in streaks, and so sometimes there'll be a whole bunch of things, and then for a long time nothing. I do remember my favorite rejection letter, though.
Let's hear
My favorite rejection letter was very short. It was one sentence, and it just said on the poem, this is sending pieces of paper out because, the olden days.
The olden days.
And it just said, "This is not a poem."
I love
That's
it.
terrible.
Did you keep it?
So
Is that
when I put together a manuscript and had a little book, I absolutely put that one in there. So it's like, well,
and nobody said this is a really good book of poetry except for this one.
Yeah, right, which isn't a poem at all.
Oh, funny.
I just thought it was such an odd kind. It's like, well, you might not like the poem. I mean, that's okay, but
this is not a poem.
Well, at least they weren't like, "This makes me so sad. I want to stick razor blades in my ears." No.
Things like that.
Was that someone else's
Talk
rejection?
about imagery.
Yeah,
That was a Woodbine
I think you
rejection.
just
I
wrote
mean,
a
I
poem,
used to submit to
Jason.
punk rock magazines by accident when I was in a folk project. It's like, oops.
That's when you heard the razor blade line.
Oh,
Said, I don't want to hear anything.
I don't even want to mention some of the rejections I've had, but that's all right.
When they write something back to, thank you we know this. They always say we've received so many, and and this one's not for us. They say that.
But how many, Linda, have you had in 1 month? What's your maximum rejection in 1 month?
Golly, I don't know. My rejection rate for everything I do, I've told people this, it is closer to 100% rejection than it is to 99. So, I mean, I'm just rejected.
So you only get
all
out
the
what you
time.
put in. If you only submit 30, you only get 29 rejections.
Yeah. So
Sometimes 30.
yeah, and sometimes 30.
Right,
and,
depending, right. Yeah.
I got one thing back once. You used to have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope.
Exactly.
So you're not wasting.
Self-addressed stamp.
Exactly.
Yes, you did.
Absolutely.
You always
Totally.
had
Well, we're not going to pay for it.
Absolutely.
I remember I
Yeah.
sent a poem once, and they sent it back with a nice little note, and I was, I thought it's always nice when they write a nice little note like "thank you," but this one had a coffee cup ring on it, and for some reason that just encouraged me and heartened me because I just pictured somebody put their
Sipping
coffee down
coffee, spilling
put
it.
and they just set it down while they were reading the poem. Now, really, they might have used it for a coaster while they're reading the really good stuff, for all I know. But I just. But that isn't how I pictured it. And for some reason, that was one of those moments where I felt encouraged.
Oh,
You
you
gotta
just
take it
never
where you can.
know. I love that.
Did you ever invest in the forever stamps? Just
Yes. Yeah. I actually bought a lot of stamps because I sent out a lot of stuff. Didn't you, Ellie? I mean,
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that was regular. I mean, because most of those little magazines, they're just people sitting. I mean, they can barely afford to keep those things running, So, oh yeah, always a self-addressed stamped envelope. It was often kind of a project, and you'd have to go to the post office and figure out, well, how many stamps have to go on this.
I wonder how many kids would
Yeah.
get the trivia right if you asked what SASE stands for.
I don't know.
Oh, they might not.
They might not.
That's a really good thing for
So-
trivia.
You're just avoiding how
literally-
many
So
rejections
does
you've
Wus-
had in a month.
yeah,
That's what
does
Tina's
Wussow-
doing.
I like
Yeah.
rejections though.
Well, what's your maximum amount?
I don't know, but I shot for 50 in a year and I got 39.
How many of you guys had in a year?
I don't even know. I don't save
keep
them,
track.
except
Yeah,
I like
no,
the
I
one
don't
with the
keep
coffee
track.
mug
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
But
How
Yeah.
often do you guys submit stuff? I guess is a good question then. I guess not often.
It's
Too much,
not
Ellie.
often.
I realized I didn't
Really
submit anything in
torturous.
2021.
It's torturous.
I didn't
I
mean to
don't
not
know.
do it. It just kind of flew
Yeah.
by, and all of a
So
sudden
I have to
didn't.
be in the right frame of mind. I kind of want to. I wish I've been in a little role with it at times, but not in a long time.
yeah, I used to send stuff
yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
but that was before. It's like the rich get richer. I mean, once you start getting something published, then it doesn't mean you're going to for sure, but it seems to. I don't know if it gives a person more confidence in what they're doing, or what. And so I used to just always be sending stuff out and always be getting stuff back. And the thing is,
Right.
when you get this envelope back in the mail and it's got your own handwriting on it.
It sounds kind of fun.
Because you forgot to put the stamp on.
Oh no,
Yeah.
no! I always
Yeah.
remember
Oh, yeah.
to do.
No.
Otherwise, I
Self-addressed.
would
won't
never
send
hear
it.
from
Right.
them.
They would not send you
No, they send it back. It's like you forgot to put a stamp on.
No.
No.
Oh no.
They would never
no.
do that.
I've
Another
been part of editing those little magazines. It's like, nope, you're not going to send us
No.
a stamp. I'm
They-
not buying
The
this.
postmaster brings it back. So it's like,
Oh, like the
post it.
original.
Yeah, they don't have any money. These, I mean, there is not big money in poetry for anybody.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
I don't
That's
know.
why
If,
you
I don't
guys
know
went
if your
into
listeners are
TikTok
aware.
videos.
Oh, TikTok videos, right?
Poets aren't bringing in the big bucks.
Yeah, Ellie's new
Yeah.
TikTok channel. Check it out.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you write poetry because you want
Yeah.
to, because you
Yeah.
love to.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
I was telling Jason earlier today about how I first heard of Ellie Shoenfeld. And I was here at the cafe, just talking to some people, and somebody, and I don't know who it was, I can't remember who it was, said, "Oh, if you like poetry, then you need this." And they handed me your CD.
With Lou
Personal, your personal ad CD.
Sony.
And you know what? I just found it
Oh.
in some stuff I was digging through, and I was like, "Oh, I still have it." I was because I'm terrible with CDs. I'm terrible with leaving the CD somewhere in the case, and then who knows? And Jason gets real mad about it. But I didn't lose it, and I didn't take the CD out and leave it in something. And so I just wanted, and then I said, "I don't know who this person is, but she's amazing."
Oh.
And then I got to meet you, and I remember I was doing one of my earliest ever readings in Duluth at the Red Mug.
Red mug?
in Superior.
I don't even know why. I don't know what I was there for, but I was very, very nervous. and I don't remember what I wrote, but I remember seeing you, and you were smiling, and you were like pleased with what I was doing, and I was like, okay, I'm all right. I'm all right.
You're okay.
And I don't think I even talked to you because I was so nervous.
Oh, geez.
I just ran out.
Oh.
But yeah, so you're just a really important part of this community.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, Ellie,
Oh,
absolutely.
I love that Lure Sony
Thanks,
album, by the way.
It's very
John
good.
Craig
Sony
was our last guest, one of the last guests on the last
right.
podcast, and
Yeah.
we talked about Lure a
Lure
little
Sony.
teeny bit. And
Brilliant. He was
and-
so brilliant.
I don't know if it's out
Yeah.
there in the universe, but
Yeah, is there a digital
Lure
form of
what
that?
was the album called?
Personal ads.
Personal ad.
Personal Ad. Is that
Yeah.
out on anywhere? Can people hear it?
Oh, we might have to
Probably not.
fix
It
this.
should be. It should be on. It should be out there. It should be
I
out
mean, it's
there.
it's out there, but I don't know.
It-
I don't keep track.
It's
I don't
so
know, but
fabulous. It's so amazing.
But it was
The
a really
timing and
fun.
the beauty of it.
It was really fun to do.
It
yeah.
was-
And your
Yeah,
work,
so-
at that time, your work gave me a lot of permissions. So
What-
it gave me permission to be
Oh.
funny,
Oh, good.
not such a serious,
Yeah.
poet. And I was just getting out of an MFA program, so I thought I had to be very serious.
Oh yeah.
But it gave me permission to be funny and to be honest and to be vulnerable. And it was a whole new thing. I was like, what kind of poetry is this? I love this. It's so good. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I first heard you read probably at something that Patrick McKinnon was doing, and I remember how much I enjoyed your. This is a while ago, Ellie. Your Barbie poems.
Oh, the Barbie
oh my
poems.
God, I know.
Oh, they're so good.
They are so good, but I can remember that, and I mean, you were just so you were very encouraging to all the other people, because I was one of those people who's going up there with this piece of paper.
Where was this at? Was that the North Shore?
I think it was at the DeWitt Sites building.
DeWitt Sites Building. We were at the DeWitt Sites Building first. We started the Poetry Harbor readings. Well, the first ones
Like
were
not
at,
at Amazing Grace, or where?
It was upstairs.
it
like
was
in a
up-
private
yeah.
room?
Well, it was at one point down where the Amazing Grace was before it was a finished place, and it
Whoa.
was freezing cold in the winter.
Really?
Wow.
And then we moved upstairs to where it's kind of like a little skywalky
Oh, okay.
thing. And that was a nice, it's up in that area, third floor maybe or something.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
very, very
Nice
strange
big-
room.
it was a-
It wasn't.
yeah.
It had the
Yeah.
strangest shape and everything.
Yeah, it was.
And,
it was
but I remember that. So
yeah.
Patrick McKinnon, and you both really made poetry, happen in
Poetry
Duluth.
Hotel.
Yeah, it was,
So,
and it was super fun.
the Poetry Harbor years. Yep, that was.
I remember going to the North Shore, like 1995, metal band poets trying to do not slam poetry, but try to get your poetry out to the people over a metal band, which is awesome because most poets, get up there and they're just writing poetry, and then they're like, "There's a mic." They're already scared, and now there's a metal band. Now I have to be loud. It's it's just like.
Well, if reading poetry at the North Shore was definitely an act of, you have to compete with, people who are drinking, so you have to be
Yes,
loud.
But that's what I love. That's what I love. It's like everyone who can compete on that level was a winner. It's like, Patrick was definitely
Oh,
the winner of the day when it came to that. But
oh gosh, he had a series called The Vibe Show down
Vibe
at
Show?
Chum.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that was
at Chum
at Chum
on
and so,
First Street,
yeah, on the avenue there, yeah.
Avenue.
outside.
No,
No, at the
inside,
drop-in.
right
Inside in
inside
Chum.
Chum. So yeah, and it was the Vibe Show, and and so here's me reading a short story about two young people falling in love or something anyway, and I'm there in Chum, and it was super fun, and what a brilliant idea
Yeah.
to do that there. And so the folks at
That is
Chum,
cool.
they're on folding chairs and they're listening to us
I love
read,
this.
and then they wanted to talk to us later. Well, I've been thinking of writing something, and I've got this experience, and so to be able, even if they never wrote, to just be able to talk with people and just communicate with them in that way at that time, it was
That's
just
brilliant.
wonderful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to
Yeah,
work
that was
across
good.
the street at Magic
thing.
Carpet Mart,
Oh,
So
so
so I,
you can do it very well.
Do you guys do that there too? Have the poets and musicians
With
come
your donut?
together
We-
at the carpet
kinda
march?
just had,
the
like,
magic carpet rides?
we just waited for people to move so we could
Sounds like a front
get
organization.
out of our parking spot because it was kind of a drunk disaster usually, and and people would come in. They definitely didn't want to buy carpet, but it was fun, and it was a lively spot to work, no doubt. But
Maybe you could have used some poetry just to, I don't know,
I
add
don't
something
know.
else.
it was great. No regrets. It was a beautiful time.
yeah, and poetry is for everybody. I mean, you can be a
Yep.
very literary person, you can be a trained writer, or you can be just somebody who wants to write a poem and is asking if they always have to rhyme. I've had
Right.
people ask me that, well, I've really got some stuff, but I'm having trouble making it rhyme. I'm thinking, you do whatever you want with that,
Yeah.
Do you
That's
know?
like Tina
Yeah.
used to not teach, but had the after-school program at
Myers-Wilkins.
Myers-Wilkins, and sometimes some of those sweet friends would come out to the poetry thing, and they're so young, and you'd have all these poets, and then someone very, very young, I don't even know how little, would go up and rip your heart out.
Oh,
Literally rip your heart out. It's like, why do you know these things? Why are you thinking of these things? It's just like the deepest poem. It's just like the truth and beauty.
kids are- yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's, to me, that's the poetry right there. It's like, if you can just be so truthful and honest and beautiful.
they haven't had these layers of whatever added on to them that keep them from.
Yeah, the
really
inhibitions of
expressing
everything
and
of
stuff.
life. And
I have to say, one of my favorites at Wussow's was a girl in her late teens was there to read a poem, and her boyfriend was sitting at the counter having, I don't know, some pop or something. The poem she had was about him, and he was just floored. And I mean, and it was a nice poem, and it was a long poem. I mean, it wasn't just and the reasons that she felt safe around him and stuff. And so every once in a while, he would just, I was watching him, and he would just kind of nod a little bit, he was just, who gets a poem written about themselves, right? And so I don't
And
know.
usually
if he was
it's not good.
that's true.
No,
Usually it's not good.
it's terrible.
But hers,
You've done something very bad if I'm writing a poem.
so it was a sweet poem, and it was and it was pretty good. And with her reading it up there, she was obviously really, really speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is poetry. To have this really young person. I hope she's had a good life since then. I hope he was nice to her.
I hope it all worked out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I should have gotten his name.
Right.
Just in
We're
case.
going to be watching. She wrote a poem about you. You better live up to that.
Yeah, sometimes studying the craft of something, it kind of creates those layers of fear and am I going to do this right, and perfectionism and
Yeah,
comparing
that's right,
yourself to others, and you lose that. It's really hard sometimes to do both, to be really open and curious with your heart, and then also understand the craft and try to mold what you're doing. It's a hard balance.
And sometimes
Yeah.
for fun, you
Yeah.
can make a poem that fits into a prescribed form and see if you can do that. And
Sure.
and it's an enjoyable thing to do.
How
But you
often
don't
do think
have
do
to.
that?
What?
How often do you think you do that?
Not often.
No.
But
Never.
I
I've
don't
never
know.
done it.
Never.
A couple
I've
times.
meant to for many years.
I don't know. A couple times a year or so, a sestina or something.
We
just
should have
to-
a little annual gathering of poets, and then we pick a challenge like that, and we just have to hang out
Oh,
and
a
Oh,
write.
it's like the
challenge.
36-hour
Yeah.
songwriter festival, but like for poets.
for poets, and they have to
Oh,
have
that's
this
fun.
form.
Yeah.
That's so
this is
fun.
your
This is the fun.
sonnet.
Yeah.
This is your villanelle. Oh,
Yeah.
Now you can't use
Here's
those fancy words around here.
no, we have to tell them what they
yeah,
are.
the
All right.
Villanelle. Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I know
So
what a
here's the
haiku
weird
is.
thing I did
This
with
is West
haikus.
Duluth.
Oh, this was
So do you guys play Wordle?
I
You guys
don't.
have
I have no
no
idea what
Wordle?
Wordle
Do you
is.
know
I'm
Wordle
aware
game?
of it.
You're-
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this won't be as nearly as interesting if you don't play Wordle. So you start with a 5-letter word, and then you get 6 tries to get the word that they actually want you to have. And so,
Cool.
okay, yeah.
Oh, yes.
I'm kind
it's
of
in the-
interested in that. That's
It's-
interesting.
So how did you use
It's very
this?
entertaining. So for what I did then was, because I'm easily amused, is I took the word that I started with, and then I took the word that it was, and then I wrote a haiku using both of those words.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you? Was it fun? Did you like
It was totally entertaining.
Yeah.
Because the words often didn't go together at all, and of course the haiku was short. So of course that was the other thing, because I usually did this in the morning, because it's part of the little reading the paper thing, or the So anyway, it was fun. It's short.
You made up your own solitaire game.
Kind of. It's like, okay. I did that for a while, and then I stopped, because that's how I do things. I do something for a while, and then I stop. But
Yeah.
Well, see, if you start something stupid like a monthly thing at the cafe, then you'll just be like, well, I guess it's my thing. And then you'll just try to get someone else to do it, and no one else will, and then you'll be like, I guess I'll go back.
It can be one of those, like a poetry slam. I think those sounded so scary that I've never gone to one.
Oh, yeah.
The word slam is loaded.
It's intense.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So some students at UWS asked me to come to a poetry slam, and I said, I don't know if that's really how I do things. They said, well, we're just calling it that. We're really not going to do that. And
I saw a lady today, and
That's sweet.
I know.
she had this keychain with this little cat on it, and she saw me look at him like, I was just looking at that cat thing, and I was like, is that just a cat, or is that for something? I was like, is it a bottle opener or something? And she put it on her fingers, and it was like brass knuckles, but with cat ears that will stab you. I was like,
Oh, my God.
ooh,
So, what's the moral of the story?
I forgot. I always do,
But man, kitty brass knuckles. That's
And
a-
poetry
brass
slams,
knuckles.
all in the same conversation.
there's always, it's like you never want to put anyone in a box, I guess.
I guess
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, it's like,
There you go.
yes.
I am struck by how poets and poetry slams memorize most of the time. They've
are
memorized
some
it.
amazing.
And
too.
I
just,
love
I'm not
memorization.
very good at that, and I kind of choke when I have to memorize something, and I'm in front of a crowd, and now I don't have a piece of paper. I'm like, my brain just goes blank, and somehow, they just go, and it's so cool. There's a poet. His name is, I think I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but Anis Mogjani. He's in Portland. I think he's the current Poet Laureate of Oregon. Maybe just Portland. I don't know. Either way, you can find him online, and it does spoken word slam type stuff, but it's so much, it feels like he's made something and he's holding it out to you when he reads it, and it's just so easy to hold, and he just always makes me cry. He's so good at what he does, and he's really confident, and I've never seen him once with a piece of paper in his hand, and I've always thought, and he goes for long, he'll just go on
Wow.
and memorize, and I just think it's gorgeous, just the ability to you don't have to look away from your audience, right?
That's what kills
You can
me,
just
though.
stay there, and
That's what gets me.
but being able to do that, I feel like I need to practice this now that I've said all these words about it, because I think it's just so powerful.
You're good at it. I think you're really good at it.
But I do have paper, and I do look down and disengage.
You're good at faking it then, because.
I try to make eye contact. I do try to be present with
But
my audience.
for someone who doesn't want to read it and just listen to it, and also as a sound person, most poets are like, and then, and they could have the most beautiful words, and you're like, I can't hear you, and you're not looking at us. The next person comes up, and there's like, brr, 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 brr. And it's like, this is terrible, but I'm engaged. So great, you win. It's like.
Do you like reading, Linda?
I think that I do now. I think I've gotten better at it.
You're awesome
you're
at
so
it.
good.
Your voice
You're
is so wonderful.
good at
so
it.
great hearing you read.
You
Say
make
what you
my
want.
give me goosebumps.
You know what somebody said about me once when I read a really good research paper, that my research papers are kind of poetic. So people really
Love
liked
it.
this paper that I did, and I read it at something, and I saw online that some guy had commented, yeah, but it was because she has a great voice.
Yay!
Well, damn, you win.
I know. So it's not-
Wow.
She's not so good.
So sort of a compliment and a kick in the
Yeah, I know.
teeth
it's
all
like
at once.
You know, I mean,
Jeez.
But
just
the
like,
check cashed, and you're here today.
You know, it was that was kind of maybe I don't know how. Why did he think that I wouldn't
A little
see
jealous,
this at
maybe.
some point?
A little jealous.
You know, and certainly he's a known.
How many
historian.
rejections have they had in a
Oh, you
month?
knew who this person was. He
Oh,
wasn't
I
a stranger
did.
on the internet. Oh.
Well,
Should we troll him?
I only
Yeah, let's
met
let the air
them
out
at
of his
this
What's the
place
address?
For a second. I'll tell you his name. No. So that was kind of shocking to me, and you know sometimes depending on the mic, sometimes it picks up my voice really well, and so it did at that time. So
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
and you know that actually does kind of dent your confidence if you're going to do research writing. No, I'm only going to submit this if I can read it out loud.
Right. to mesmerize you with my beautiful voice.
I love that though.
Yeah.
I love it.
That could be a caveat when you
Yeah.
get to a certain level. It's like, I will do this job, but only if I can do it live.
I'm fairly certain there was tests and different things I passed in school simply because I was able to do it funnily. Funnily?
Funnily?
Funnily.
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 Funnily
Amusingly?
cake?
Humorously.
Humorously,
Yes,
yes. We'll get it. We'll get
I
it.
like funnily.
Yeah.
I like funnels.
With extra
Did you have a lot of
frosting.
funnels?
Yeah. Yeah, I
A
realized that's not
funnily
right.
cake.
Humorously, where I was able to make jokes, and I think just making people in the class laugh, or specifically the teacher, for some reason that worked, and I was able to trick people into thinking, oh, okay, well he knows enough.
Or maybe you're actually smart.
Yeah, maybe you actually were good.
Who knows? Could it be?
You didn't hear
I
what
don't
you
know.
didn't hear these presentations.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. But just,
They were
Now I really want to, though.
they were sort of
It's
funny.
like my driver's training when they gave me a
Yeah.
driver's license. I was like, I hit the
Hey.
cone. It was like,
You hit the cone and they gave you a license?
but I was like, ugh. And then I'd start driving fast with one arm, and I was like,
Oh,
ah,
boy. Maybe they
freaking
shouldn't have done that.
failed. I know they shouldn't. I don't even. I'm throwing no one under the bus. I don't even remember who was in the. But they were like, I guess you know how to drive. Here's a driver's license.
Close enough.
I was
Oh,
like, really? I hit the cone and I'm blind, and I drove over the speed limit. Okay, whatever.
That sounds like a poem to me.
yeah.
Hey.
Elliot, how about you? How do you like reading and sharing over the years? Did it used to make you crazy nervous when you were young?
It intermittently makes me very nervous to do it. Yeah. So,
Still?
but
When
yeah,
does
yeah,
it not
so-
make you nervous?
But I don't know. It's random. Sometimes I'm relaxed. Sometimes I'm pretty nervous. And I think, that whole thing with, I have to keep my eyes pretty much on the page or I'm going to lose my spot. So it's kind of, it's like trying to be relaxed. But so sometimes it's really easy and sometimes it's, I'm real nervous.
Do you have any specific variables that make you nervous that you can have pinpointed over the years?
Or the opposite.
Not really. Yeah. Sometimes.
It's just kind of vague. You never know what's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I don't know. It's random. I mean, it doesn't stop me, but it's.
Yeah.
Well,
It's,
how about
you
if
know,
it's somebody I accidentally plaughtized from?
Oh, yeah.
Well, when Amy Tan is in the audience.
What if Amy Tan comes to here and says, I wrote that?
Hey, wait a second.
Only the names have been changed, Linda.
Full circle.
When you read, sometimes you're not reading, I've heard Ellie do this. You're not reading exactly what's on the page. Because I, of course, when you read, I have to have the book and follow, but kind of like what works at that moment. It's the poem is still, it's a living thing.
Right, that goes to what you were saying
sometimes
earlier
I've
about it
edited,
never
yeah.
being done. It's just like you publish it or stop writing it, but it's not done. So you can go back and
Yeah.
tweak in some way.
I've definitely done
Oh.
that. I'm reading along, and then I realized that's the end, and I don't need to read those last two lines. I was wrong. I didn't. But that was a real good end where I finally figured it out in this live performance moment.
Do you
Yeah.
like to read? You're a good reader.
I do, but I
you are a
used to
good
be
reader.
horrified.
Yeah.
I mean, just full body trembles, sweaty, and all my friends were so afraid for me or sick and unhappy at my experience that they turned away. Literally, all my friends came, and I looked out at the audience, and all my friends were like on their phones and looking away because they couldn't bring themselves to watch my my suffering longer. No, you remember this. It was awful. And no, Jason really casually, when we first started dating, said, "Oh, you should just come to open mic and share some of your writing." And I was like, okay. And apparently I didn't know how to do that, and it was really scary. And I didn't even know that I would be that afraid. But all of a sudden I'm up there and I'm stuck up there and I can't get down and I just have to pretend, you know. But my body wouldn't let me pretend. So I was like holding the paper in my hands and arms and legs. I mean, it was just like, and I was like, it's so funny now to think about it. I was like trying to keep my composure here. And in my voice, that was also trembling, but I was totally trying to pretend that you don't see me. Have you ever played hide and seek with like a 2-year-old and they cover their eyes?
Oh, yeah.
Because they think if they, okay, so yeah. So I was doing something.
I still do that, actually.
Like that. Yeah. Like if I just smile through this experience, no one will notice. Yeah. Full body troubles. So then I thought, well, I'm never doing that again, ever. But it occurred to me, you know, it was our the actor friend who moved away, who's in New York. Ron Mendelsohn.
Yep.
Okay, what is it? Mendel? Anyway, he's an actor. He was in Duluth, and then he moved to New York, and he met me one day, and Jason told everybody that I was a poet, and he just told everybody that the first thing. This not even my name, just she's a poet, and so Ron said, "Oh, can I hear some of your stuff?" And we were just sitting in the booth in the restaurant, and I was like, "Well, I guess so. I happen to have it with me."
Well, of course you do.
So I pulled it out, and he was so engaged. He was just so curious about what I had to share. And I don't remember what it was or if I thought it was good or not good. I just knew that there's something happened there between us. And then I thought, and I was terrified then too. And I was stuck in the middle of the poem when I realized I was terrified. I'm like, oh no, I'm terrified again. This is awful. But I thought, there's something here. And I don't want to give up. If I give up, I'll never do this. And so then I just became like ultra determined to not just do it, but do it as well as I can possibly do it. So I started this trick. And everyone who's nervous to get on stage, I tell them all my tricks. Sit down, cross your legs, put your hands under your crossed legs so nobody can see you tremble. Get a music stand and put the piece of paper.
How are you going to hold your poem?
I have a plan for this. I have a plan. Have a music stand wherever is comfortable for you to casually turn to read your work. And then don't let your paper be folded because it'll fall down, and then you have to put your hands out and then you'll shake it and it'll be terrible.
Or it'll drop on the ground.
Right, you can't let anybody know that that you're controlling something. This is just a game, and we play games with ourselves all the time, so it's no big deal. But so I did this every reading I had until one day I took my hands out. And I was still sitting, and I was still hiding behind the music stand, because that's another thing. It was hiding me. And I held the paper, and then I got a little shaken. I put the paper back, and I took my hands away. And I just did that little by little until I could stand up. And then I could hold the paper.
Oh.
And then I could not shake. And then I could look people in the eye. And then, amazingly, it became fun. And then I really realized that there was something in there that was hiding in me that I had to make an opening for. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I frequently find myself discouraged in different situations, as I think many, if not all, artists do at some point. Now, all of you seem to push through that, and I guess I'm curious on how. Because in that situation, something was even though you're horrified, shaking, something just pushed you through anyway. Just the determination to want to, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Or
I can remember when I would be really when I was first reading out at readings or that kind of thing, and I was telling somebody, Audio Nib, I don't know if anybody remembers Audio Nib or if he's around. I don't know, I haven't seen him in a long time. Anyway,
Audio was just here this week.
Was he? Oh, good. Good.
From the co-op or on 10th.
I don't know where he's from now, but he's from
Audio Nib.
But it's got to be the same guy.
Emerson, the cooperative Emerson.
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
Audio Nib was just here.
Yeah, so I was talking to him one time. This is a long time ago, and I was saying, "Oh, it's so hard, just I've got all this stuff and putting your soul out there." And he was like, "It's 10 minutes of your soul. Big deal."
Yeah.
Hey.
Wow.
Yes.
It's like a life-changing thing. It's like That's right. It is. It's just like 10 minutes of my soul. It's not that big of a deal,
If
you
there
know.
is
If
a
I,
soul.
you know, it's you know, I'm putting.
Well, it's like being at the
Well,
dentist. You know, it's done after a while, right?
Right. The
Yeah.
dentist. Yes.
It'll
the
be done
dentist.
soon.
Exactly.
No.
And you
Yeah,
get to
right.
see the kitty
Yeah.
poster when you're laying back
yes,
and
you
you gas
do,
and
and
it's
so-
relaxing.
Yeah, that's a good way
but-
to think of it. It's
But it was funny. It had the right mix of funny and some perspective. So
Yeah.
it's like, well,
Yeah, I've
it's
heard
not
that
really-
as like an anxiety technique too. Is just like counting to 10. It's like you can get through the next 10 seconds. You can get through whatever.
yeah.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I always do for anything.
Oh,
20
there you go.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yep. You can do
Yeah.
this for 20 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you can write for
Uh-huh.
20 minutes, Linda.
I
No,
mean-
I don't do that.
Well, but you could.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think it's important to have honest friends too, because
Oh.
after I got off stage that first time, I walked, I don't know what I was thinking, but I walked right up to Dan Dresser. I don't know if anybody knows Dan Dresser, but he has no problem telling you exactly what he's thinking. And I said, "What'd you think?" And that was the stupidest question I could have asked, but I was still pretending that nobody saw that. And so he said, "You know, I think you had something important to say. I think you're a good writer, but I couldn't hear you over your hands shaking. That's
Oh.
not going to work. You got to quit that." And then that was the end of that conversation. And I was like, at the time, I was like, "Damn it, you're supposed to pretend that wasn't happening. What kind of friend are you?" But every other person in the room pretended that didn't happen except him. And when he said that, it was just like a challenge. But he said it in a loving way, right? Like, "Hey, you have something that I want to hear and the world needs to hear. Let us hear it," you know? And it just kind of challenged me in this fun way. I'm not saying every time Dan Dresser speaks, it's profound.
But that one,
But at that time,
One
it did.
you got
I'm
lucky.
going to send him a copy of this podcast because of this.
Well, I think if you're feeling discouraged in something you're writing, it might be just time to put it aside. And I sometimes, if I don't like what I'm writing, I will go have some M&Ms, you know, and
Sure.
you know, because
There you
Big,
go.
big ones or mini ones?
little ones, yeah,
Little
yeah,
minis.
yeah. So, well, I mean, normal ones.
But I agree with what you're saying. If it's hurting a lot, go do something else for a while,
That's
or
a
come
good-
back at it later. I've come back to projects many years later, and it
Mhm.
worked.
That's
And
really
I was ready for
Oh,
that.
yeah.
My soul was ready for it.
try and have
Yeah.
just some fun or
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
try to
big fun.
enjoy it. That's
Try
not a
to-
bad
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and I
not
used
a
to,
bad
and not so
idea.
much
It's not a
pressure
bad
on
idea.
yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
well, this, you know,
I used to
Yeah.
keep my
Yeah.
stuff in a cardboard box, and you know, and I had manila folders, and I had a lot of them in there, and now everything's on my laptop, which isn't actually as much fun as the box of stuff to dig around in. And so if I never threw it, I would just put it in there. Sometimes I would put a note in, what it was, but sometimes not. And so I always felt like I had something I could go and dig in, and so that was how I worked for years and years and years on stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
and so, what did you when you say dig into it? What do you mean? What were you
Physically
doing?
dig.
I mean, like, and then to do what with it? Just to look at it and kind of
Yeah,
just
look at it and see
reassess
if this, if I'm I think, okay, I'm working on this. I don't know if this is really what I'm trying to do here, and then go and dig out something else I was doing and compare them. And sometimes they inspire each other. They, they kind of talk to each other. I think a little bit, and so yeah, it can be. If you just don't have anything to write, I mean, don't do it.
yeah, right.
Go
Yeah.
have some M&Ms,
Yeah.
and then you'll be able to write again some other time.
Mm.
You can you'll always be able to write. There's
Right, yeah.
always stuff there to write about.
and sometimes getting real detailed in something small, just because sometimes it's easy to want to write about something big, and that's the hardest thing to write about. So, something really small. But I like the digging too, and I still do that because I'm kind of I'm not very techie, so I still have piles of rejects, but there's often a line or something in there, or
Yeah.
something that comes back that didn't catch the first time around.
Yeah. Oh, well, and
So,
that
yeah.
I understand. I mean, I
Yeah.
have folders and folders
Yeah.
and folders of old drawings and stuff that go back
Oh, yeah.
years and years and years. And I mean, actually, now that you mention it, I do actually pretty frequently go back and look through those and
Yeah.
and go, oh, that was funny. Huh? That was clever that what I
yeah.
did when I was 11 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
11?
Yeah.
I mean,
You
some,
have folders from when you were 11?
if not younger, yeah.
I don't even remember
Wow.
what was happening. I don't even remember when I was 11.
I believe that.
I believe that.
So-
so sad but true. Damn.
But I think that old idea, or maybe it's still true for some writers, but that you have to write every day or else. That you have to wake up every day and for this much time every single day you have to write or else is kind of damaging to a lot of people, because when they don't do it, they feel like failures, and then they just say, well, screw it, whatever, I guess I'm not a writer.
Yeah.
You know?
There's people who do that.
Mhm.
I mean, I know people who get up
Yeah.
really early in the morning and write for an hour.
Yeah.
No way. I don't even know what I'm doing. 9:30 is when I wake up, no matter what I'm doing. And so
Well, we have this in common.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
You'll never work at a coffee house, obviously.
No.
well, I for years and years I had jobs where I had to be there at 8 in the morning.
But you weren't there.
I wasn't there. And so my system
Yeah.
was, before I left every day on my desk, I would sort stuff out so that the easiest was on top, because I always had a big pile of junk I had to do. So I always put the easiest stuff on top, and that is what I would do before 9:30.
Muscle memory.
Yes. Why
Where's
do
my
people want to
coffee?
gather
Where's my
at
coffee?
8 in the
I'm
morning?
glad I didn't
don't
hit
know.
anyone on my way to
No.
work because I wasn't there.
So I was that's how I worked, and I think that works that way with your writing too. I mean, sometimes you're really there, and sometimes you're not. But I always just figure, I don't know. There's nothing wrong either with telling yourself you're going to sit down and write something, and just write anything.
You get up in the middle of the night and write shit, or write it down, or do a voice recorder, or do you just wish you
Oh
did?
God, a person should do that, and that takes discipline. I used to do that, and I would just
You
I'd
wake up.
Well, yeah, because
Oh,
I
have
would
you
be
woken
dreaming,
up?
and then oh my God, I got to
Yeah.
write that down. So if you don't,
If
and
you
you
don't,
tell
it's
yourself
gone.
you're going to remember,
You never
never.
is
No,
there.
no, you
But
don't.
I
You have
used to
do
do
it,
that
yeah.
and have some notepads and just throw them in there. And I used to keep that stuff in plastic grocery bags on a doorknob and just throw them in. And
Yeah.
so I would dig through that stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
So
right.
but it takes
That's
discipline to do that.
Dream
Well,
imagery.
To
yeah,
say,
just
yes,
to
I'm
get
going
those
to.
those moments. Those are the best moments, though.
If you write this excellent poem
yeah.
and it's 3 in the morning
Yep.
and you don't do anything
Yep.
with it, it is gone. I have poems that are gone, and I know they were
Yeah.
my
Right.
best.
Voice
My best
Exactly.
work.
Exactly.
Voice
Yeah.
recorders
Yeah.
are my friend. It's like
Yeah, just to
Yeah.
quickly, just like I have this thing, or I
Yep.
suppose for you, you can do a song real quick. Just the song
anything.
goes ba ba
It,
ba ba
it,
ba
could, it could be
ba.
the lyrics.
Yeah.
It could be a melody. It could be anything.
Yeah.
It's like you could wake up. You could be walking down the street. I mean, people look at you like you're crazy. You're like, it's like talking to yourself. But whatever. Everyone does that anyways because they have
Yeah.
earbuds in. They're talking on their phone. So
That's
now,
true.
now you
Way more-
actually look normal. So
Way
now
more
it's
confusing.
okay. But
Yeah.
If it's important enough that it's coming at you like that,
When it comes,
it
that's where you
deserves
get
something
it
like
into
that.
some-
I think there is something, who said this, Robert Olam Butler, I think, talked about in his book From Where You Dream on writing. He talked about how we can all hear either a thrumming of the guitar or a twang when we're reading through our own work. You're thrumming along and then you hear a twang. And if you hear the twang, you have to address the twang. You can't
Oh.
pretend the twang isn't there. It will not suddenly become a thrum.
Yeah.
And we know the answer, but sometimes we just don't want to address the answer right now, or we're not ready to, or we can't let it go yet, or we really want to make it work somehow when it's not working. But we all hear it.
You'll think I'm kind of funny here, but mine is actually little ponies galloping.
Oh, you have ponies.
I do. I have ponies.
I love that about
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Ponies. How come you get ponies? I want ponies.
you have a little
That's so
pony.
great. I
Okay,
love
there's
that
the
they
ponies.
make
That's the
Yeah.
ponies
The
galloping is the
ponies
good
are
sound?
galloping as I'm reading my stuff and
That's so
writing my stuff.
wonderful. Oh, I love that so
Yeah,
much.
so
they're
that's the
they're
thrum?
just little ponies
Ponies.
galloping, and
And then do they
Oh, I
stumble
love
or
it.
stop when something you come upon something that's not?
well,
working?
if I can't sense them doing their little thing, then I so I feel that when I'm writing. I know that
I'm
sounds
getting-
really
I'm
strange,
getting
but
really
love it.
confused
No,
though
it
because I
sounds
love
really
the
beautiful.
thumbing, the ponies, and I also like the stops and the space between notes. So I'm they all sound good. I
Yeah,
don't
they
get
are.
it.
It's all
Yes.
good because we're
Yeah.
listening.
Mhm.
I read my poems out loud a lot while I'm working on them, and
I
then
love that.
and then when I stumble, then that's a little cue.
Mhm.
Or if it just I can hear it and it's like, oh, it's just off.
People say that about writing dialogue too.
Yeah.
Just like, make sure you're saying it out loud, otherwise it might not be as clever as you think it is.
Or the rhythm gets
Yeah, you're like, well, that's not
wrong,
what a
you know,
person sounds like.
So a word I'm really loving has to maybe be changed.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes it's like, oh, well, I'm not quite ready to drop this, but it's every time I read it out loud, I get stuck there.
When you say drop it, that's
So,
the difference too. You write something and then you do it in front of people, even one person, like your first trial.
Yeah, and you go,
and you're like, this is the best. And then you're like trying to do it in front of one person. And you're like, this is not the best. This is not the best.
This.
Abort.
I do a lot of reading.
You
out
never
loud,
gave
too.
an animal sound though. You avoided it. Don't be a politician.
I don't. I've
Just
I
kidding.
love the
feeling.
pony. I'm gonna listen if there are any animals coming along.
Just kidding.
I didn't have an animal had an instrument, but it wasn't my idea. It was Robert Olenbauer's
I got excited
instrument.
about the pony, I guess.
The ponies.
The ponies, yeah, they're
I
plural.
love and it's so rhythmic. The ponies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, they're not all in sync. They're
Right.
nope, there's
Doing their
a
thing.
there's a number of them.
They're all
Just
together.
yeah.
Oh,
Do they have
beautiful.
multicolored hair?
They are multicolored ponies, Jason.
They're visual too.
I've had them since I was a little girl.
Oh, that's really great.
That is
That's
how
really
I
great.
think, and that is how my writing them when I'm reading and writing it's the ponies.
I'm
So-
never going to listen to you the same again. I'm always going to have ponies. I love it.
Multicolored
yeah.
ponies.
So are they always the same colors, or do they vary? Or
They
Yeah.
whatever they are. Who's
Yeah.
Are they sure-footed? They can go through the mountains?
They are sort of almost like dancing. I've got to
Oh,
tell
they're
you.
like Tennessee Walkers.
They're kind of
crossbreeded with a
dancing,
My
and
Little
they're
Pony.
going forward, and they're in grass, and so I know. So
beautiful.
really nice.
it really is kind of a nice thing to have with you when you're going through life here.
It's a bunch of ponies.
Ponies.
Yeah, it's like that you can instantly just
I love
escape
that.
into this kind of into this nice peaceful place.
With
with
I do
these
just
feel like I'm
ponies are-
getting a cavity, though, just thinking about it.
well,
there's
it's so
something
sweet.
to
Yeah.
There's some
So
cotton
nice.
candy element in
Cotton
there.
candy elements. So it's not like My Little Pony because it was before My Little Pony.
Yeah.
That they were,
There's My
No,
Little
but
Pony.
before
My Little
these
Ponies
before
exist.
these.
That's right. That was so they're not little chunky things like My Little Pony. They are graceful.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
they
My
are.
Little Pony's chunky. That
Chunky.
is not.
I know.
They're stout.
They're stout. See,
Yeah.
these are not stout ponies. So they're
big
more
bones.
like carousel horses,
yeah.
but not
Carousel
painted. So
Mm.
anyway, but that's
cool.
how I'm thinking. And
Yeah.
when they just aren't doing that, then I think, well, maybe I'm not gonna do this for a while. You
Mm.
know?
Yeah. Step away.
Yeah.
Come back.
Yeah.
Well,
Terry needs to pee.
I do actually need to pee. You're right on. Yeah. So it's
You guys spending too much
You guys
time
are really
together.
connected.
I was so the words out of my mouth. I was inhaling to say that, and then Jason went, "You gotta pee."
It's like magic.
It's
This is how we end the show
yeah,
every
it
time.
is how, but it is conveniently how we
Terry's
end the thing.
bladder is the level.
Yeah, I've got a podcast length bladder.
Oh,
It's very convenient. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I was born to do this.
yeah. It's
so,
the spiritual and the corporal. Yeah.
So thank you guys very much for coming. This has been lovely. I've really enjoyed talking to you guys about writing and everything. If there's anything you guys want to promote or pitch, I know you have a book coming out that you probably want to mention.
Oh, I have a book that was just released this week. It's a novel. It's called A Song Over Miskwaa Rapids.
Ooh.
As far as I've noticed, you can really get that anywhere you get books.
Yes, you can.
I always like to, whenever I go anywhere just in the region, I always like to see if I can find your books, and generally I can.
And they have them right
It's-
next door,
it's
too.
really cool.
So, yeah.
Even
So thank you.
sometimes you can like
Beautiful
look in
book, too.
cars because a lot of people shop at the bookstore next door and they come in for coffee.
I'm not going to go peek into people's
You get
cars.
free books.
No, just kidding. Don't do it.
A very beautiful book too. Pretty cover.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is
I haven't
a
read
pretty
it yet.
cover.
But
It's a
beautiful
pretty
cover. I
cover,
just got
yeah.
it, so.
Anything you've got going on?
I got nothing.
Oh.
I got nothing.
Oh, lies upon lies.
Well, I'm trying to write things, and
So,
but
Keep an eye out.
but I don't have any kind of thing that's
That's
so
all right.
This is good. This is
The humble
Yeah.
of humblest.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to
Yeah.
go in
Well,
and
there's-
look up personal ad online and see if I can find it. And if we can't find it, then we'll have to talk about how we get it digital for people to listen to, I think. So I don't have anything coming out, but we have the Writer's Salon here at Wussow's every third Thursday in perpetuity. I just really like that word.
Favorite
Yeah,
word.
and it starts.
Yeah,
It's
favorite
6 to
words.
8 every third Thursday.
And quite frankly, I think these winter months are kind of the best times to
Oh,
go,
they
just because,
are.
like, when it's snowing, especially, and you're just listening to people read poetry and whatnot,
Yeah.
and it's kind
It's
of
dark at 2:30. It's
great.
perfect.
It's good to learn to drive in snow and ice.
Yeah, there you go.
Get
Yeah.
confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about
Get some tea and
confidence.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
actually, Ryan Vine was going to be the featured guest this month, but he was going to be the
Oh.
featured guest in March, I believe, or maybe it was April, and there was a terrible snowstorm. Our thing was
So
an
he's
ice
gonna do it
storm.
in December.
And then we switched it to
November?
May, and there was a weird ice event in May, and he sent me a message in the middle of the day, and he's like, the ice is terrible, and I was like, where are you? He's like, Scholastica. I'm like, really? Because I'm down the hill and it's fine, but so we canceled, and then this summer I had to cancel and have someone else anyway, so he can't. His dog is having surgery, so he's gonna come in
sheesh.
December. But I
Is
told
there's
him,
going to
I'm
be
like,
an ice
there's
storm.
going to be
Yeah.
an ice
When
storm.
is it? So I know to stay home that day.
Yeah.
Just because
Well,
of
it'll
the
be-
ice.
it'll be the third
'Cause there'll be
Thursday.
so much ice. Oh, the third Thursday.
Yeah, so
the
just-
third Thursday, of course. Oh. And I think Brian has a new book, I think.
Oh, there you go.
I think that's
Stay under
a
the
recent
snowstorm and
book.
read it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes.
Oh,
coming.
thank
It's
you
been
so
a lot of fun.
much.
It's
really
very
fun.
fun.
It
Yes,
was
this
really-
is
what a
super
great
fun.
thing. It's
Yeah.
nice that you're doing.
Yeah.
We're